Then there's vines. You got vines, they could be annuals or perennials. Annual vines do not like to be dug up at the end of the season. They do not like that. And they do not like to be transplanted. Annuals would be cardinal climber. Any pole beans are vines. Tomatoes, technically, they can be vines if they're indeterminate tomatoes. Morning glories are vines. Those are all annual vines. They don't want to be dug up. Cucumbers a vine, don't dig it up. Peas, like peas, you go to grow peas, and it's a short vine, but it's harder to, at least to me, to grow them from seed and then transplant them because they don't tend to like to be transplanted.
Right.
Saw a video where it was zucchini. It was zucchini seed, and they had like a glass front. It was in a container and with soil. You could see the soil level, and they put the seed in right up against the glass, and you could see there's a root that grew down first, and then it grew like these stabilizing roots that were really long toward the top, and then
Yeah.
it grew a bunch of little fine roots. And so that would make more sense to me why like zucchini or other squash, watermelon, things like
Right.
that. They don't want to be transplanted. That's why you
Right.
would sow them right in the soil. So they
Yeah.
can grow what they need to and not be confined. Don't box them in. But there are perennial vines like a clematis or a trumpet vine or a honeysuckle, vinca or periwinkle that's like a ground cover. Those are all perennial kinds of vines, and you can dig those up and transplant them. Roses, they have climbing roses are technically like a vine. Hydrangeas, they have climbing hydrangeas as well. Now we're getting into shrubs. Now,
Okay.
shrubs, they're going to come back every year as long as they're selected for your hardiness zone. We don't want to grow something in a hardiness zone of like 8 or 9. That's like more tropical, or 10, like Florida.
Right.
If they were planted in water, oh, and that's the thing. Some people down in Florida, they try to grow lilacs like we have up here, but they're not necessarily rated for the Florida weathers and temperatures and the salt water. So they have a harder time growing them down there. They'll come back every year as long as they were planted and watered correctly. Like if a landscaper just shoves a plant in and doesn't see that the roots are had been wound up in the pot and they don't plant it correctly, you might have to dig it up and replant it.
Yeah.
If they plant it in a mound and the soil has washed away, you might have to dig it up and replant it
Right.
so it doesn't die. You don't want it to die. Or as long as they weren't pulled out by a helpful partner. Sometimes the chief has walked around and kind of pulled things out for me. Thank you, but I didn't need it pulled out. Or they weren't eaten by critters. For shrubs, make sure you know what the mature size is going to be, the mature height and the mature width, so you don't over estimate or underestimate the space that they actually need. Some people will say, I love that tree, but it's a tall tree or a tall shrub. And they'll say, oh, well, I'll just cut it down. I'll just cut it down to size. I'm like, no, please don't do that. All right, you're too tall for my car. Let me cut your head off. No, that's not how that works. Think about it before you plant. Or they'll plant things like a tree. They'll plant it too close to the power lines and it'll grow up into the power lines. And then you see those trees that are like they're shaped like a Y with because the power lines are going right through them. That's just so
Yeah.
sad. So sad. Um, so your shrubs, you can get them with flowers or without. You can get them with berries if you want wildlife. You can get them with thorns if you want a protection. Like you can put them underneath the windows.
Yeah.
So
That's where
intruders.
these two are. And I did it because I love the color of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, okay, I can deal with the thorns.
Yeah, exactly. And then just like with regular plants, as far as the flowering goes and the timing, you want to make sure that it's going to be in bloom when you can enjoy it and appreciate it, and it's not contrasting with something else. And you don't want to plant, there's some shrubs or trees, can lump them kind of together, where you don't want to plant them near driveways or sidewalks or patios, and they end up with messes, like the maple tree and helicopters, like oh, the crabapple tree sometimes that all lands on the ground, or it will attract the birds, and the birds will come in to eat the berries, and there'll be bird doo-doo all over the cars. And that's
Oh
not
yeah.
fun either. Or on your patio tables. Ew. And then the good thing about shrubs is that's where you can really get more color throughout the season. So maybe they're green in the spring, maybe they have white flowers as the summer goes on, and then they change to yellow in the fall, and then they just have a really nice shape in the wintertime. So that's kind of something to think about. What does this thing look like through the whole year to make sure that it's what you're looking for?
Okay.
Uh, and then as far as trees go and the heights of trees, they do have dwarf varieties of a lot of things. Like if you like maple trees, but you can't get something that large, maybe you get a Japanese maple that's shorter. So you can
Oh
look
yeah.
for dwarf plants that you want. Butterfly bush is like a woody perennial, almost like a shrub. But the regular kind of butterfly bush is 6 foot wide by 6 foot tall. And
Serious.
maybe that's too big. They have dwarf varieties of butterfly bushes that are a lot smaller for
Yeah.
smaller gardens as well. So then pruning these, the basics for the pruning is at any time you can prune anything that is dead, diseased, crossing, dead, diseased, or crossing. Yes. Oh, or facing the center of the tree or the shrub. So if you got a big old shrub like this, and then you've got a branch that is pointing toward the center, any branches toward the center, you can cut those off
Okay.
because they're going to
Yeah.
block light. They're going to trap moisture, and it's going to stress the plant out. And with both trees and shrubs, every branch it doesn't necessarily get longer, they get thicker. So a branch that's this thick this year, next year will probably be this thick. So if your branches are crossing each other, maybe right now there's space in between them, but once this little guy gets bigger, and then once this little guy gets twice as big, they're going to be touching. And if it's crossing, they're rubbing the bark of each other, and eventually it's going to create an opening for disease and pests.
Yeah.
The other part with your shrubs is you get flowering and berry from flowering and berries, flowers and berries from things that are like pencil thin stems, not like
Okay.
this.
Oh, okay.
So, like with your barberry, I have a client who never had pruned her barberry ever, and she had branches that were as thick as her wrist. She
Oh,
had
kidding.
several coming up from the rootstock that were as thick as this. I said, listen, I am going to take out two of these. Don't panic. And sure enough, the next year she had all kinds of just smaller ones. They're more
Right.
malleable, they're healthier, and they're going to be better off. So you said it's been about 3 years. That's something you might consider looking at. How thick are the branches? You could probably take them off if they're about thumb size. And I would do like
Yeah, they're pretty thin. Yeah.
every third branch around
Okay.
like around the plant and see what happens. Take it down all the way from the ground level if you can get in there. Also look for your crossing branches or disease branches.
You said cut every third?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me
We
put
do
that
that with
over here.
lilacs too. Like people will have old lilac trees. And if you go through, and they might be 50 years old and they've never been pruned, but then they stop flowering. They don't get as many flowers as they want. That's because they like to flower on the newer wood. So when you start cutting out the older branches, you get
Oh,
flowers.
so we had a former resident that put a what was it you just said? The
Lilac.
lilac, and it's along our arborvitaes where an arborvitae had died, and so she put it there. It's been doing good. It bloomed really well 2 years ago. Last year it was just okay. It probably needs some pruning.
It might, if you
Yeah.
look at the branches.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yep. It might also benefit from a little bit of compost around the bottoms, like mulching with compost, a couple inches.
Oh, okay.
It might not have as much sunshine. It does like sunshine. It doesn't love shade as much.
Which is unfortunate that they put it there because it is getting some shade.
Yep. Yeah. And then when you go to plant when you go to choose trees That's our evergreen trees, like things like that. And evergreen's always going to keep its leaves on. So you're always going to have whatever color that evergreen is, and it's going to stay in that place. The needles are never going to fall unless they're diseased. Now, the problem that a lot of people have that are just starting out with trees, their pine tree or their fir tree or whatever might start dying toward the bottom. So
Yeah.
they start removing those bottom branches. They never grow back. Evergreens, once you start pruning them, those branches never grow back. And so when I was in South Korea, they had evergreens that were like all trunk, and then it looked like an arrow. There was like a couple little bit of a little bit of the evergreen boughs left at the top because they
Oh
kept
man.
trimming them all the way up. And then
Yeah.
there also are some diseases that are going through our area where I think thought it was white pines. It's some kind of fungus. It's been in here for several years, and their evergreens are dying out. I had a client that has like five, and one died out, so she already had that removed. So she wanted to know, what could she plant there? Plus, she wanted to have like a butterfly and a pollinator garden. So I was able to help her with that.
Okay.
And then when you plant trees, you're looking for, do you want the leaves to come off? Do you want them for a landscape or you want them for an orchard? You want them for privacy? Some, like the deciduous, they're really good to plant in the southwest corners of the house because they're going to give lots and lots of shade. So that afternoon summer sun is not going to hit the house. It's going to keep your place cooler. Then in the wintertime, those leaves fall off, and then you're going to get the sun for the wintertime to heat the house. So that's the advantage of deciduous trees where the leaves fall off, because you
Yeah.
get light in the wintertime and you get lots of shade in the summertime. You can apply all of these concepts to anything, like the dead disease crossing.
Yeah.
Broken, if it's a broken branch, because people are like, whoa, I don't know if I can prune this. Is it dead? Is it dying? Does it look sick? Is it broken?
Right.
Yes, please do. And it's good for the plant because if they're
Yeah.
afraid they're going to kill it. Click on the video for the next portion of Know Better, Grow Better. And if you enjoyed this, share it with a friend and consider subscribing to the channel for more. Thanks so much for watching.